Stick around today for Two Guys on a Porch. We continue our conversation with Scott Sauls as we enjoy Van Winkle 13-year-old rye as well as E.H. Taylor and revisiting new Riff. And we're going to continue to riff about biblical truths and Christian liberty.
Welcome back to Two Guys on a Porch. I'm Jason. This is my buddy Bradford. If you haven't watched our first episode, this is a two-part episode. We can't get all the knowledge squeezed out of Scott Sauls in one episode. So here we are, still on the porch with Scott, continuing our discussion. Be sure to stop and like and subscribe to our podcast. Go back and watch the first episode, and we're just drinking new Riff and enjoying the porch with our buddy Scott Sauls.
Thanks for joining us again.
Good to be with you guys.
So we did have an opportunity to explore new Riff, and you guys had an additional pour. I did not.
Yeah. So Bradford, as you can tell by the,
I'm a rye snob.
Yeah, but you there are ryes that you do like.
Hence the rye snob.
Why you don't like this one? This one doesn't.
Because it's not good.
It doesn't have character. That's what you
Is
usually
that what
say.
it is?
You usually say it doesn't have character, and I agree with that. However, this is a hot Tennessee afternoon sitting on the porch. Beautiful day. It's, I don't know, in the 80s or something like that. Fortunately, we're in the shade. This is a good summer bourbon right here. This is, it's.
So you say.
Yeah. So it's light on the nose, light on the mid palate, very aqueous, almost a citrus lemon finish to it. Very light on the palate, not a full mouth finish. It's very light, very easy to enjoy. This is good sipping whiskey. I am surprised it made Whiskey of the Year. I am surprised at that because most people who enjoy whiskeys really want something more complex in it. This is simplistic, and in simplicity, I enjoy it.
Now, give them credit. So, distillery founded in 2014. They are a producer of a number of varieties. This is kind of their go-to, and their signature is more of a higher rye mash bill. This is 30% rye. It is still bourbon because it's, I think, 60% corn, 30 rye, 10% malted barley. So very much their signature. It's simply not to my taste. It's certainly not to say it's bad whiskey. It's just not to my taste. But we do have a couple of other things to compare it to, both of which are Buffalo Trace products. So we've got some E.H. Taylor, which is their mash bill number 1. So it's a low rye mash bill, but did a little research, and they suggested to try that in comparison. And then, Scott, we also wanted to attempt, we didn't talk with you beforehand, to have you try something you've not before. Mm-hmm. And so we've got the Pappy Van Winkle 13-year-old rye. So it is a rye. Now,
technically, it's Van Winkle. It's not.
That is true.
Yeah,
that is true.
So the bourbon geeks out there would get on you about saying Pappy.
That is true. Yeah. And their rye is 51% rye. So it's a higher corn content.
So whiskey, not
but
bourbon.
But it just barely pushes it over that mark to be, has to be at least 50% rye, and they're 51. So we're going to hand you a glass of the Taylor, if you'll take that. And then let's give that a sip. Jason, I'll pass this over to you as well.
Thank you, sir.
And then we'll nose and take a sip of this. So on the heels of the new Riff.
Now, this is E.H. Taylor, correct?
This is the Taylor. That's right. So
Eddie, as I call him.
Is that right?
Yeah, we were close.
Remarkable since he's been dead for 130 years.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Edmund. Long history. He's kind of the godfather of modern bourbons. He was born and bred in Kentucky. Well, born in Kentucky. Actually, his father died at 5 years old. Talking about suffering, his father died at 5 years old. Went down to Louisiana to live with his uncle, a guy named Zachary Taylor, who was a colonel in the Army at the time. Later became President Taylor. So that was down in New Orleans. Came back to Kentucky to do several things, banking business. He was in banking in Kentucky. Of course, banking in Kentucky meant lending money to distillers. So he learned about the distilling business. From there, he got into, he became mayor at Frankfurt, I believe it was, mayor for a long time. He was instrumental in creating the 1897 bottled and bond laws. So he's considered the father of modern American whiskey. Back in the day, they would put all sorts of crazy stuff in it for the coloration, the taste. E.H. Taylor was instrumental in putting the laws in place that put the rules in for bottled and bond. So,
And as a result, all of their whiskeys are bottled and bond, if I'm not mistaken. So this is their small batch, kind of their standard offering. And I've tasted it, and I didn't care for it.
yeah, because this has this.
I like the new Riff better.
Because this has the rye. Rye has that quintessential characteristic of that spice. You can drink it blind. You say, I don't know what it is, but it's a rye.
Now, this is not a rye whiskey.
Oh, wait a minute. I'm sorry.
No, this is their standard bourbon.
Oh, but I'm sorry. It's not a rye whiskey, but it's high rye. It's 12%, or it's got.
Yes. Now, it's not 30.
Yeah,
and,
no,
and I like the new Riff better for
But
whatever
what
reason.
I'm saying is that Riff, while it has that rye in it, you don't taste that rye. It's a very light citrus flavor. This is, in my mind, anything has that 10 to 12% rye is a rye bourbon. I know that's kind of contradictory because it's mostly corn, but it has the characteristic of rye in it. You taste that spice instantly.
Well, let's go to the experts.
Yeah.
Scott, you've tasted both now. Do you have a preference between the two?
I think I'll go with the Taylor.
Is that right? So you
Yeah.
prefer
Wow.
that over the
I
new
do.
Riff?
I do like the new Riff, but I've had both before, and I would choose this 9 times out of 10.
Oh, so that makes me. We're going to move on this quickly then to the Pappy, which I just had an opportunity to
Winkle.
taste. Sorry, the Van Winkle 13-year-old rye.
What's
I
the
stand
difference?
My
corrected.
wife Emily says I'm too literal. I'm sorry. It's
Well,
just-
what is the difference between the Pappy
There,
Van Winkle and the
there
Van
are
Winkle?
only 3 Pappies.
Okay.
And it's the 15, the 20, and the 23. So he is correct.
Of course I am.
Oh my gosh. So
And is Pappy? I assume Pappy Van Winkle is also Buffalo Trace.
It is.
Product. Okay.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah,
and
Buffalo
there,
Trace bought them.
there are 3 Van Winkles, the 10, the 12-year-old Lot B, and then the 13-year-old rye. So they have the Van Winkle label, and then the Pappy are the 3, 15, 20, and 23. So, yes, to be most technical, that is the explanation. You happy, Jason?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Thank you for being accurate.
So I had a chance to taste the Pappy, and I love it.
Wow. Yeah. So
I'm a rye snob.
this is what I'm talking about. It's funny that some ryes, and I'm saying rye bourbons, rye whiskeys, things that typically the typical mash bill is that 10 to 12% rye. You see it in everything from Wild Turkey to whatever. And so in my mind, that's a rye whiskey. Technically, no, it's not. This Van Winkle is greater than 51% or 51%
Yeah.
rye. So it's a rye whiskey, not a bourbon. But most rye bourbons, if you will, that 10 to 12%, you taste the spice instantly. You do not in this Van Winkle rye that's 51% rye. It's not so forward with the spice. It's
very well balanced.
yeah. It's
Now, what did you think, Scott?
It's delicious. It's a little drier than the other two.
Interesting.
or spicy, as Jason would say. But
So
tasty all the same.
of the 3, so we've eliminated New Riff, with Taylor being the preferred. And so after the Van Winkle, you're going back to the E.H. Taylor.
I think so. Yeah.
wow. Okay,
How
so you
about
like
that?
that spice taste
do.
to it?
I
Yeah.
do. Yeah.
Yeah, and we're in the same proof range with the Pappy. The Van Winkle rye. It is 95.
Our listeners our geek snobs out there, our bourbon snobs out there will appreciate.
Well, it gives them something to correct.
Yeah, that's true.
right.
Yeah, please comment and tell us how Bradford is yet wrong again.
Not the first, and it won't be the last.
No. But this is great. I mean, this is you use the word. It's much more balanced. It's more complex. It's still that kind of watery, aqueous finish. It's more full mouth, and I enjoyed that. Is this non-chill filtered? I venture to guess this would be non-chill filtered because it has more of a full mouth filter.
That I'm not sure about, but it's interesting. The conversation around chill filter versus non-chill is that master distillers generally will agree that they can't taste a difference. Now, I don't know whether it makes a difference other than visually the non-chill filtered has a little cloudiness to it. But in terms of taste, they say it doesn't make any real difference.
I'm certainly not the expert by education, but perhaps I'm getting there by experience. And we've experienced this, is that the non-chill filters have more of that full mouth feel to it as opposed to the chill filters do not.
I'll have to trust you on that.
Now,
I've not tasted trying to discern
it's
that.
my opinion, so I can't be wrong in that. So,
and is that the goal, to make sure you're not wrong here?
that's it. It's probably one of my idols, which we'll talk about. Scott will pull me aside after the podcast and gently chastise me for that. Perhaps that's one of my weaknesses there.
So I do want to ask Scott a couple of questions, and I'll preface it with, I went through a divorce in 2008, and I was in my early 40s at the time, and had come out of a period where, having grown up steeped in the theological rightness of a particular denomination, feeling like I had all the answers or had to have all of the answers. And I remember my father sitting me down. It was a bit of an embarrassment for the entire family, being the first one to ever go through a divorce. And my dad said, "Tell me how that shaped or shaped your faith." And I said, "I don't know that it did, but what it did do is it made me realize that I probably have more questions than I used to have, and I'm much more comfortable not having the answers." Do you have an experience where that's relatable, or is that a cop-out answer? What's your take on that?
So, if you would have asked me at age 35, I would have had a watertight answer for you,
Right.
with proof texts
Yep.
and all the rest. My 58-year-old self has grown not only a lot more at home with, but also attracted to the idea of mystery, and especially mystery around suffering, mystery around best laid plans going awry, mystery around putting our best effort into something significant like a marriage and it collapses. I'm very comfortable now, and I suspect I'll grow even more comfortable as my body eventually falls apart. I'm starting to get to that age where, I'm a Chevrolet with 120,000 miles on it, right? There's something in the Bible that I find very comforting. And it says at the end of John's gospel that if everything about Jesus were written, and you could extrapolate that to if everything about everything was ever written and put down in books, the whole world could not contain those books. And I think God has given us enough, for us to know what we need to know. And then he's left a lot to mystery so that we can put what we know into practice. And the best practice of what we know is to trust him in the things that we don't understand. So I would say embrace the mystery. For me, that means grieve the wrongs that I've done to other people and grieve the wrongs that have been done to me and put it all at the feet of God and be okay with not knowing a lot more than I do know about any given subject, but to know that I'm held and kept by God I can trust.
So one of the things that comes to mind, and thinking a little bit about the book Mercy King that you've written, especially at the age you referenced being 58, I'm a little older at 60, so I'm the oldest person on the porch. You're the youngster, Jason.
I am 56.
That
Still a child.
a couple of things that have been a thought lately is contentment for me occurs through surrender. Really on a daily basis, that I have to give up whatever notions I have about what my life may look like, what retirement may look like. That in order to have contentment, I have to lay down my own expectations on a daily basis. And then, Jason, you referenced it in our last episode about this idea of comfort. And talking to my wife recently, you know, it's in some few years, I hope to be able to retire. And I had this idea of, oh, I get to have a life of leisure and comfort and relax. And I thought, wait a minute, that may not be what God has for me. And I've got to be okay with that too. The contentment in that unknown, and I don't know what that looks like. I don't know what God may be calling me to, and I've got to be okay with that too. And I'm curious, in your interaction with men, particularly with your new ministry, is that a common thread? And what do you teach and mentor those who are in a similar life stage?
So yeah, we actually have an entire module, for lack of a better word, on contentment, and we call it the same thing that the Bible calls it, a secret. You know, it's really interesting. You know, that even the Bible talks about contentment as something that we have to learn, which means it's something that has to be taught to us by forces and people and entities and a God outside of ourselves. But can I go back to what you said earlier in your comments, where you said you put surrender and contentment together.
Okay.
Which I think is really important, not to just move on from, especially for men. I don't know what the age demographic is of the guys who listen to you guys riff here on the porch, but let's just say most of them are somewhere in and around midlife, 38 to early 50s, give or take, or approaching or slightly beyond that range. This is a phase of life where surrender and contentment become, front center issues, right? Because we have enough life behind us to realize some stuff worked out and some stuff didn't. We've got some stuff to celebrate where we got better than what we deserved, and we have some stuff to grieve that maybe we got less than what we felt we deserved based on what we put into it, and we start to live more in a more contemplative way, and in that season of life, we're also thinking ahead, or we're starting to. I don't know about you, but I'm starting to think about my own mortality. Actually, when I hit 40 is when I started to think about my mortality, and there's this prayer that people in recovery pray called the Serenity Prayer that I think grabs hold of that paradox that you put in front of us of surrender and contentment, where it says, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, to the courage to change the things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And then if you're in some 12-step programs, they tweak it a little bit, and they say, God, grant me the serenity to accept the people I cannot change, the courage to change the one I can, and the wisdom to know that one is me. And all of that together, I think gets us back to the beginning of the conversation. When you put surrender and contentment together, we're back to mystery again. And yet, when you put those two words together, Bradford, you're actually affirming something that Jesus said, a little bit over 2,000 years ago. If you want to find your life, you got to lose your life. If you want to be a blessed person, you need to recognize it's more blessed to give than it is to receive. It's more blessed to lay down your life than it is to take your life back up again. In other words, it's best to surrender control over your life to God as opposed to trying to take control yourself. And so, that's all kind of esoteric speak for, sounds like you're on a good path.
Oh, that's good to hear.
Yeah.
So I've seen statistics recently about young men in particular returning to faith. and to some degree to the church universal as a result. But I'm curious as to your perspective on this. Are they coming in with a real understanding of their own faith, what faith is? There may have been church abuse in the past, either in their own life or family. And so now they're walking in because there's community, but they've got all the cultural pressures of, well, whatever I was doing in my life before, sexual freedom and all of those. Now you're going to give me a set of rules that are contrary to what I see, read, and talk about every day in my life and workplace. How does that come together with the truths of biblical Christianity versus cultural Christianity?
So, initially, or what you said initially about young men in larger numbers and larger percentages returning to faith, and specifically institutional religion, as they call it, where they're joining churches, and a lot are attracted to the more ancient expressions. A lot are very attracted to the more liturgical, historic expressions, to Catholicism, Anglicanism, sort of high church, as inside baseball church people talk about. Not exclusively, but noticeably.
So that's a true. That's a true thing.
It is. I think it is a true thing, and the reasons vary. But ones that I've heard at least, or read about, or had conversation about, have a lot to do with the longing for connection and community, which the advent of phone culture and things like social media, like my kids' generation, your kids' generation, are referred to as the first digital natives, where their native language is, their first language is through the phone, and their second language is how we're communicating with each other. I mean, that's mind-boggling if you think about it.
You're right. You're right. Yeah.
But that has a shadow side where it leads to loneliness. It leads to the curation of community, which means you're not really experiencing the friction that all healthy community and all healthy friendship is going to put on the table. You can just block somebody, or you can unfriend or unfollow in order to curate something that really is in your own image, et cetera. To your second question about being a law unto ourselves, and just that dynamic of the human heart, where we, as the Bible says, we don't want to submit to God. We resist Him. We want to run our own lives. We want to be our own masters, and I don't think that's unique to young men. I don't think it's unique to younger generations. I think we have our own expressions of it and our own blind spots, as did our parents' generations and generations before, but I don't think it's generationally isolated by any stretch. I've been a pastor for over 30 years. Those sins are in all generations.
Well, and you talk about in your book Christ's pursuit of us in the midst of that. And talk about that rather than us having to go to Him. Like, juxtapose that. Explain that premise, if you would.
Well, He does say to go to Him. Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I'll give you rest. If anyone would come after me, he must deny himself daily and take up his cross and follow me. So Jesus, there's this tenderness aspect of the invitation, and then there's this toughness of like, I want you to follow me. And part of the reason why I want you to follow me is so you'll change and become a better, more life-giving version of yourself, because you're not that guy yet. So what was the question again? Just so I make sure I get to the answer.
Well, because you talk in your book about Jesus' pursuit of us in mercy.
Yes. So I'm of the belief that nobody pursues God unless God pursues them first. Started all the way back in the Garden of Eden, where God comes into the garden, and he says the first word. He makes the first move toward Adam and Eve, and of course they hide and they cover and everything else, but God is pursuing them, and in the same way, I think it says in John chapter 6, Jesus says, No one can come to me. No one can pursue me unless the Father who sent me draws him. And all who the Father does draw will come to me, and the one who comes to me I will never drive away. And so there is this mysterious sense. There's that word again, mystery, in which God is the first actor on the human heart, and in which God also holds all humans accountable for surrendering to Him and following His lead. And there's so much mystery in that. I haven't found an answer to it. Didn't find the answer in seminary. Didn't find the answer in any of my Bible study. How you reconcile those two things, except to just say they're both true. And while they may not make sense to us and may be a great mystery, Paul, when he's talking about marriage, but he says this is a profound mystery. Understatement of the universe. Is so much about Christ is a profound mystery. Even marriage is about Christ and the church ultimately.
In your book, going back to that, you mentioned Solomon a lot, and I think that's a great character to look at, of the dichotomy of here's this guy that God, okay, Solomon, you're going to be king. What do you want? And Solomon asked for wisdom, and God says, that's a great answer. Good answer.
Yeah.
Not only give you wisdom, I'm going to give you all this other stuff too.
Mm-hmm.
And so Solomon having all this, and very little suffering, if you will. Everything was given to him. At some point, he has all these wives, and he was given over to like setting up places of worship for their wives. He married multiple women. They had other gods, and all of a sudden, Jesus, God, was not the center of their worship, and that led to his downfall. And that it goes back to our earlier conversations of suffering. Suffering maybe it isn't all bad. Maybe because here's a guy in Solomon, and you're in the descriptive truth of it, as you called it. Of here's a guy that had everything: riches, wisdom, women. You could say that became his idol, if you will. It became greater than God, and you do talk about that in your book, and that how God still drew close to him while he wandered away from God. These rules are not rules in the sense of like, thou shalt not do that. God does say that, but it's almost like a warning. If you cross that fence, you're going to get electrocuted. Bad things are going to happen to you. You're going to be outside of my domain.
Yeah.
And so going back to your book there, I think you really articulated that well in there.
Thank you. There are two rules that God imposes on us. There are two types of rules. One is don't run in the street.
I don't know that that's in the Bible. Can you
Don't
quote
do
that one?
It's a metaphor.
Yeah.
It's a metaphor. Don't do that which will hurt you. Don't resist the way you've been designed. Don't resist the safety and protection of the boundaries. And then the other one is the fun one that good parents do. I created this whole playground for you. Go enjoy it. Grab a few friends. Because there's so much in life that God,
Sit on the porch and having whiskey
these
and-
wonderful treasures on the table that you guys
And
share with.
and that you have more freedom than the other freedoms you sought. You mentioned earlier the sexual freedom. Well, it turns out that's not so free. I mean, as a matter of fact, it has the cost of your life to it. It's the sweetness of a poison that later kills you. The freedom, that sexual freedom, is a misnomer. It's not free at all. Yet within God's rules, that are fences, people think of it, you have this greater freedom than you would have any other way there is.
Yeah. So we'll just use the product here that we're all enjoying, right? If I take all of this and guzzle it down, that's essentially the equivalent. If God's saying to us, don't take an aspect of my creation and turn it into an indulgence. Let it remain in enjoyment. This is flourishing,
Yes.
getting to do this And while none of us are intoxicated, there is a spirit lift. There's an educational element and an enjoyment and a fascination element to talking about what into the making of it, the history of it, all this. I'm really fascinated by your historical knowledge. Offline, I want to ask about your reading. Like, what do you read in order to be able to riff all these things? But if you drink the whole bottle, it's gonna wreck you, right? And I think that God's boundaries and God's freedoms, work a lot even, in terms of how we consume something like good bourbon, right? Like,
Yeah.
like I know what my limit is. When I start moving beyond that, I go into territory that I don't want to go into, right?
Yeah.
But as long as I stay within the boundary, I'll have a great afternoon with you guys.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think, we have spent great time on the porch today. And Scott, I can't express to you how much we appreciate you joining us.
Appreciate the invite.
Indeed, absolutely.
As we've said, the whole purpose of time on the porch is to fellowship. Jason, you've referenced the fact that cigars and whiskey are the car that gets us to our destination. We've experienced that today. And hopefully you guys watching and listening can do the same and join us, Two Guys on a Porch.
Don't forget to like and subscribe. We'll see you next time. Cheers.
Please like and subscribe, rate, all the stuff you do on all the social media platforms. Thanks, guys.
Let us know what your drink and cigar of choice is at TwoGuysOnAPorch.com, and you'll be entered into a drawing to get some Two Guys on a Porch swag